Blah, 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 blah.
Keys Under Fingers is the 10th studio album from the Canadian Avengers. When you were going apeshit about this album, I was kind of like, you know, whatever. It's really all about the first one through Signals. Then you pointed out this album has some bangers on it. Red Sector A, Between the Wheels. A lot of people overlook this because it's not part of that golden era.
A lot of people think that since it's like after Signals, that it just doesn't exist. No, it's got the synth. It's trash.
Being the keyboard player, I loved it. But they did go pretty heavy-handed with it. And I think one of the most impressive parts about Rush was not just their big sound with just 3 guys, but their ability to shape-shift their sound. I think Alex was the real star of this album. You heard on Signals, especially on songs like Subdivisions, where Alex was going crazy with the guitar, but you could barely hear him. He was a lot more subtle than your average guitar player. On this one, he's nice and up front. Without further, bovine excrement. Just an early warning. Some of the opening riffs remind me a lot of Police era Walking on the Moon style stuff. Those loud chords that really utilize every string to really fill in a lot of the empty space left by just having 3 guys in the band.
What Geddy does, he's definitely a subtle keyboard player. He's not, you know, Jordan with that. It's more of an accent for the songs. And then I love Alex's tone that he used. It almost matched the sound that the synth was using for most of the album.
I love Geddy's bass tone. It has a little bit more of a splat. It lets it stand out more behind Alex's loud guitar. The bridge before the second hook with the crash cymbals, the organ, the big guitar created a massive sound. I guess you could call it an explosion of prog.
That's my line.
The guitar solo, I think, is one of Alex's most creative. He always kills every guitar solo, but this one builds tension rather than just being an absolute showcase. I give this one an 8.
Just like in Signals, I guess Geddy decided it was good to start off the album with some synth, and I couldn't agree more, so I give it an 8.5.
There are a lot of heavy meanings on this album, this one being about the passing of one of Neil's friends who also worked on a couple albums with Rush. The bass pedals pair amazingly with the guitar too. It gives it that extra aggression level as if Alex's full chords weren't enough.
The simple yet fitting synth notes really tie the entire song in once again, just like in the beginning. Like you said, it's about a friend of his, so definitely a lot of passion here.
One thing that is a detractor from the synth era patches he used for the synthesizers put a huge timestamp on the songs. In the outro, the similarities between Red Sector A, even if it's not connected, provides a really nice transition to that song as well. I give this one a 7.
7.5.
Here we go.
The worst
Here
song
we
of
go.
the album.
There are so many reasons that this is the standout of the record. The weight of the lyrics and meaning, a heavy contrast with the feel of the song. Neil keeping it steady on the hi-hat, very similar to the intro of Subdivisions, which we did a cover of, which you should go watch. Alex letting those bar chords ring out. Even though Alex is the biggest standout, especially on the solo, that brings a new level of atmosphere, it's Geddy that brings this song to life. One of the strongest vocal performances from Geddy, I think, easily on this album and possibly of his career. The keys put a lot of timestamps on a lot of these songs. This one actually gives it a lot more of a modern feel with that pulsating bass sound. You hear it a lot in modern EDM music, and we even heard it this summer on the Tenet soundtrack.
Red Sector A. Wow. Yeah. Shit. The way. My God. And then. Oh my God. Shit. This guitar solo. Holy shit. Geddy takes the lead with the synth. This song definitely hits home for him, talking about his mother.
The song was inspired by Geddy Lee's mom's experiences. He means this as just any concentration camp situation, whether it's the Holocaust or what the Chinese are doing.
That's a cultural norm.
Neil's use of the electronic drums work with the song as well. Even if it sounds like Patrick on Sweet Victory, they match the keyboard patch really well. One of Rush's genuinely best songs, at least of the post-Signals era, except for Clockwork. That album's pretty fire. We got to that. 9.5.
Top song on the entire album. I give it a 9.
The first and second to last part of the Fear series. Really cool shift in tone. Goes from a futuristic 80s rock song to some cowboy western music really fast. The Fear series by itself is phenomenal, especially in the way they tell it in reverse chronological order. This one starting off describing fear itself, whereas Witch Hunt really talks about how fear is used to control people, and The Weapon discusses how it can be utilized against people in a society.
Geddy pulls the bass back off the shelf, starts ripping awesome bass line.
Words like imagination spins, needles at your nerve ends perfectly describe the feeling of fear. Can I give this one a 7?
8.
So this is one of your favorite songs, right?
Yes, and this is your favorite commercial?
Were you injured in an accident? Call 100-1001 in distress
right now.
Let's hear why you like it first.
Okay. One of the first things that really captured my attention with this, slap bass. I've never heard Geddy do slap bass. Alex just roaring on the guitar with that same patch. 1001 can be a little corny, and the music video is a little corny also. Alex is just like, his fingers are on fire, and it's like the guitar's gonna explode. Alex doing something different, and Geddy something different, but they also have key root notes that make them sound like they're doing the same thing. Just shows their chemistry, in order to work together on this song to make it mend perfectly. Those are my main reasons.
Holy shit. This song kind of pretty much sounds like Distant Early Warning 2. Not one of the more lyrically heavy songs, but some parts actually remind me of Chemistry from Signals in terms of, you know, the very short one-hit lines. This was one of Neil's most impressive performances on the whole thing, specifically the outro, again, shades of subdivisions and some lightning fast fills. But overall, not one of my favorites on the record.
So basically you hate Rush.
It's a good song. That's why I gave it a 7, but it's just, to me, it's like, we've heard this. It's like Peace of Mind Syndrome.
Being one of my favorites, 8.5.
I understand this song has some lineage in the Metalhead family.
Which I don't know if anybody else around our age watching this right now had dads that liked Rush.
You don't hear Alex using the delay pedal too often, so it's cool to hear that here. More of a modern sound than what we've heard so far. It sounds like something that could have been on the Goofy Skate Park soundtrack.
Alex's guitar work, it's one of my favorite pieces by him. His opening riff is just something so different that it always sticks with me. Progression of the notes really gets me going. And there's that one part where he kind of shreds your eardrum, but he's like, I thought maybe he grabbed a fork and was just like shoving it into the fretboard.
Alex doing a nice Eddie Van Halen impression for his solo, capping off a song that he yet again dominated. I give this one a 7.5.
An 8.5.
We had a little wager before we started which song would be the most asked. Was it this one?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. There we go. All right. Now let's tear it to shreds. So the part where aliens abduct you in the first minute is a little bit weird, but throughout that you can take the opportunity to take in Neil's incredible drumming, especially with the ear panning that they do. The most disjointed song on the entire album. The only thing that was really steady and consistently great throughout this was Neil. Lyrics, no. But drums were on point. I know someone's out there is pissed that this is our least favorite, and we want to hear from you. Let us know how fake and gay we are.
Aliens. I don't know what it is about prog rock and aliens, but they seem to just always be there. It's like you get abducted. I agree totally. I think the best term for this song is disjointed. It's just hard to really put it higher than anything else on this album.
5.
I gave it a 6.
The rhythm on this one is undeniable. Really a return to some of the great parts of the early half that we were missing on the last few songs. The hook features such a big sound with the spacey keyboard patch and Alex and Neil doing their thing.
It started with a banger, and it ends with a banger. The dark synth intro, followed by the fast-paced drums and killer guitar, really sets you in the mood as if kind of like you're about to get jumped in an alleyway. I don't know why. Just the way going through life, being stuck between the wheels and dealing with shit every day while listening to Rush.
If there were a title track to this album, it would be this song, how it returns to the theme of Grace Under Pressure. Perfect placement to cap off the album. I give it an 8.
An 8.
Overall, this album is most certainly overlooked. Inevitable coming off that 3-album stretch, but this definitely holds up.
I see why most hardcore Rush fans might not find this one to be as high up as others. It's still a solid piece of work by them. Every piece except for, Red Lens is pretty solid and a great contribution to their overall pieces of work.
Not to mention Alex's performance obviously stole this whole thing. All the guys really in Rush are household names, but mainly you hear about Geddy Lee and Neil Peart. Alex Lifeson is kind of third in that ranking just in terms of recognition. Don't have to look farther than the fucking Rolling Stones list to see that. But he deserved a starring spot on this album, and he earned a starring spot on this album. I give it a 7.5.
Still one of my personal favorites. Love the artwork. 8.5.